have you ever had the bottom just totally drop out in your life? You know, like where everything is going fine and then all of a sudden something happens and the world never ever feels the same ever again. My daughter, Mackenzie, was born in July of 2001, and my 6-week maternity leave was up that first week in September, right around September 3rd, 2001 of that year. So I was trying to figure out how to balance my life now with 2 kids, a 4-year-old and a 6-week-old, and a full-time job at church. And it was during the same time of my life that my husband and I, we were really struggling. We were going through some really, really difficult times, like really, really hard. And it was on a Tuesday during this period of time when the phone rang in my house because we didn't have rampant cell phone use back then. But the phone rang and I picked it up and Carl, my husband, was on the other end of the phone. And I said, Carl, I am just trying to figure out how to get the kids all kind of ready to go for the day and tried to get to work. I really don't have the energy to get into it with you right now. And then Carl said something that I'll never forget. He said, no, Angie, this is so much bigger than us. A plane flew into the World Trade Center in New York City. Turn on the TV. So I hung up the phone and I went and I sat in the living room and I turned the TV on and I was watching it like with big wide eyes with my 4-year-old son next to me and my 7-week-old daughter in my hand. We were watching in shock and thinking the same thing as all the newscasters at that point, that something had gone wrong with this airplane. Something had gone wrong with the plane. And we didn't really understand the horror of it until we watched on live TV that second plane fly right into the other tower. It was right then when I knew and felt in my whole being, and everyone knew and felt in their whole being, that everything had changed. Revelation chapter 6, it talks about trusting in false security. It starts with the Lamb, who we know as being Jesus, this Lamb who has been able to open the scroll in chapter 5, the only one who was able to open the scroll in chapter 5. But then John introduces us to these other creatures that invite him to come as Jesus, as the Lamb is opening this scroll. And these creatures, we actually commonly call them the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. There's all kinds of crazy theories out there about what these Four Horsemen actually mean. So I want to make some sense with them for you today using Russ Lackey's book, Power and Purpose. Chapter 6, it starts off like this. It says, I watched the Lamb open the first of the 7 seals, and then I heard one of the 4 living creatures say like a voice of thunder, come. And I looked, and there before me was a white horse. Its rider held a bow and was given a crown. He rode out like a conqueror bent on conquest. So this first horseman of the apocalypse, this first horseman represents trusting in one's nation, putting one's nation actually before God, putting one's nation before Jesus. This horseman of the apocalypse reminds us that nations, they come and go, and issues us a warning not to put our trust in our nation. Now, the second horseman comes along, and it's written like this in the book of Revelation. It says, when the Lamb opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature say, come. And then another horse came out, a fiery red one, and its rider was given to take power and peace from all the earth and to make people kill each other. To him was given a large sword. So this second horseman, this peace horseman, interestingly represents peace, putting your trust in peace. Now that seems a little bit confusing, right? But during the time that this was written, the Roman Empire and most of the world that they occupied, their motto was Pax Romana, which actually means Roman peace. But the way that the Romans attained this peace, it was done at all costs. That means that Rome, they crucified, they controlled, they kept military might in order to keep people afraid in order to maintain peace. So this second horseman comes as peace, but is also given a large sword and made people kill each other. So this rider, this second rider reminds us that not to trust peace as the answer to all things. Now, the third horseman is described like this. It says, when the Lamb opened the third seal, I heard a living creature say, come. And I looked, and there before me was a black horse, a rider with a pair of scales in its hand. And then I heard what sounded like a voice among the 4 living creatures saying, 2 pounds of wheat for a day's wages, and 6 pounds of barley for a day's wages, and do not damage the oil and wine. Ah, this third horseman with his scales of commerce represents wealth. Question for us is, how much do we trust in our wealth and in our own ability to take care of ourselves? This is a third warning for us to not trust wealth. And then finally, the 4th horseman of the apocalypse. When the Lamb opened up the 4th seal, I heard the 4th living creature say, "Come." And I looked there, and before me was a pale horse. Its rider was named Death, and Hades following close behind him. They were given power over the 4th of the earth to kill by sword, famine, and plague, and by the wild beasts of the earth. Now this 4th horse, it's sickly and pale, and its rider is Death. What amazing language John uses here. But this horse, it warns us not to trust in our health, not to trust in our own health with an ability to save us. And I think interesting for all of us who've just gone through a pandemic, we know that our health can be taken from us just at any moment. So these 4 horsemen, nation, peace, wealth, and health, let's be honest, they're the same things that we rely on today in order to keep us feeling secure. Like everything's going to be fine if we just have those things. Now, for me, before September 11th, and for many of us, I think most of us felt like we were safe from those foreign threats. But then that failed. And then the pandemic came and that failed. And then Wall Street crashed and wealth, that failed. All of these horsemen, they keep trying to make us trust them, but really, they lead us astray. They keep trying to say, "Come," but then we know that the Lamb overcomes them, that they are all going to fail. So here is the question that John is really pushing us here to ask in Revelation chapter 6. What do we put our trust in? Do we put our trust in the one who actually can open the scrolls, the Lamb, the one who is worthy? Jesus is what we can put our trust in. That won't fail us if our enemies attack. That won't fail us if we can't buy our way out of a problem. That won't even fail us when death enters into our bodies. This Lamb, this Jesus, is the only one who takes away the fear of the world and the bottom falling out. Oh, good stuff here in Revelation chapter 6. So here's my questions for you today to really think about as you ponder this. Number 1, what do you put your trust in? I mean, it's easy to say Jesus, but I think from time to time, all of us find ourselves putting our trust in either our own ability or our own wealth or our own awesomeness. So answer really truthfully. Don't lie to yourself. What do you actually put your trust in? And number 2, how are you tempted on a regular basis to put your trust in one of the 4 horsemen? That is an interesting question for us to think as well. So this book of Revelation, it has so many things for us today if we can get past some of the imagery and the language and make sense of it. Thanks so much for joining us here today. I hope to see you again tomorrow.